Donc, on va démarrer. Il est...
I suggest we get down to work. It's 11:30. Greetings and welcome to the Secretariat as well as members of the Plants Committee, observer parties and observers. Here we are on day 3 of PC 25. I'm delighted to be here. I hope you are too, and I hope you're happy to see me again. We are going to take up the following agenda today as it appears on the site. First of all, we will look at Sum 1 and Sum 2. Then we will tackle agenda item 16, which we did not take up on day 2, that is to say 16.1 and 16.2. We will then look at the 10 working group reports, that is to say PC 25 COM 1 to 10, then 36, 29, 39.2, 39.3. And we will wrap up with regional issues and all those items which have to do with the closing the meeting. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. Could I ask if the Secretariat has anything to add?
That you just announced in the sequence of the different items that are going to be debated. In case these cannot be concluded today, we still have a session tomorrow that we can allocate to the Plants Committee for completing its business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretariat, for that clarification. Before we get down to work, I simply wish to give you some clarification on executive summaries and summary records. Rule 18 of the Rules of Procedure of the Plants Committee explains that the executive summary contains the decisions of the committee which come into effect as soon as the executive summary is endorsed. On the other hand, the summary record, which is produced later, within 40 days of the meeting, will, for each agenda item, contain a short statement indicating the main points of the discussion, the text indicating the decision that was made as it appears in the executive summary, and the text of any statement provided by any member, acting members, alternate member, or the observer from any party that was read into the record during the meeting. The participants in the debate shall also be included at the end of each topic. I hope that this clarification will enable everyone to understand the distinction between executive summaries and summary records. I would suggest that we now take up PC 25 Sum 1 and PC 25 Sum 2. That is to say, the executive summaries for the first and second days of the PC 25 meetings. So first of all, PC 25 Sum 1. The floor is open to committee members. I will then invite observer parties to take the floor, and then observers. I would imagine that you are familiar with this document, which has been posted on the CITES website. Are there any requests for the floor on PC 25 Sum 1? I don't see any requests for the floor. One moment, I do apologize. The United States has requested the floor. You have the floor, madam.
États-Unis, vous avez la parole.
My apologies for the delayed request for the floor. Just an edit to paragraph number 25. It's on page 4 of the summary record. We felt that this was a decisional comment. Under paragraph 25B, we would note that the information documents submitted by Oman and India were requested for inclusion in the discussion. And so we would suggest that in paragraph B, where it says discuss key gaps in knowledge, we would suggest including reference to their the information documents PC25 Inf Doc 7 and PC25 Inf Doc 18. Thank you.
I would like to thank the United States for that statement. Could I ask you to give me the document numbers again? Thank you.
Certainly. Those would be PC25 Inf Doc 7 and PC25 Information Document 18.
Oui, je vous écoute.
Thank you.
I don't think I got that, says the chair. Oh, no, that seems to be okay now. Thank you.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you for that clarification. Would anyone else like to take the floor on PC 25 Sum 1? I don't see any further requests for the floor. The Plants Committee therefore adopts PC 25 Sum 1 as amended by the United States. Thank you. We are now going to move on to PC 25 Sum 2. Sum 2. See, I'm already exhausted and we've only just started, says the chair. The floor is open on PC 25 Sum 2. Thank you for that clarification, Secretariat. Sum 2 is now before you. Who would like to take the floor?
Les États-Unis, vous avez la parole.
The United States has the floor.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. On page 3 of the summary record, at the top of the page, paragraph F, technical note that it's the word "the" appears twice, both at the end of the first line, at the beginning of the second. So while I'm on the mic, I thought I would point that one out to you. A more substantive edit would be on page 5. Under agenda item 28, African tree species. The beginning paragraph, the committee agreed. We would suggest adding the following language before the word "to." The committee agreed, here's the new language, that it would be premature to publish to the CITES website the annex to document PC25 Doc 28 addendum pertaining to document PC25 Doc 27 on Prunus africana, comma, and to submit, so the rest of the what's there would stay. So is the new language clear, the suggested language? Okay. Okay, so in between, the sentence goes, the committee agreed to. So in between agreed and to, we would add the following words. That it would be premature to publish to the CITES website the Annex to document PC 25, Doc 28 Addendum, comma, pertaining to document PC 25, Doc 27 on Prunus africana, comma, and then the rest would stay. So good. Thank you.
I would like to thank the United States. I have noted that proposed amendment. However, let me just think about how to best put this in French. There is a need for us to think a little bit about the best way of putting this in French. There might be a need for a paragraph to run before the draft decisions, but I will give the floor to Germany and then we'll see how we can tackle the exact language here. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry because this intervention is not on this topic but on the summary too. So do you want me to continue now or later?
Bon, allez-y.
Please do go ahead and we'll have a look at all proposed amendments when we're done. Please do go ahead.
This is just a little observation that on page 5, regarding agenda item 19, there are 2 decisions directed to the Plants Committee, and there are redundancies in 19CCB and 19DDE. I'm not sure this will be covered by any tightening up of the Secretariat anyway, but I wanted to make this visible to you, and I think this needs to be merged somehow. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Germany. Let me just check with you. You're talking about 19CC little b? You have the floor, Germany.
Sorry, I escaped too quickly. Yes, exactly, Madam Chair. It's 19C. First of all, 19CC and 19DD are both addressing the Plants Committee. This is my first observation, and the second is that 19CCB asks the Plants Committee to make recommendations, and 19DDE again says it should make recommendations for considerations, and both are with relation to decision 19AA. Is that understood?
Vous avez dit que dans les deux cas, donc entre...
So you said that 19CCB and 19DDE do have redundancies, and that is indeed the case. So thank you. I've made a note of that. Would anyone else like to take the floor on sum 2? If not, we'll come back to the proposed amendments. So, first of all, I would like to take up the point raised on item 28, that is to say the amendment proposed by the United States. The United States requested that we add some language to item 28. The text, unamended text reads, the committee agreed to submit to the Conference of the Parties the following drafted decisions, 19AA to 19CC. The United States wished us to add that it would be premature to publish to the CITES website the Annex 225-28 ad relating to document PC 25-27 on Prunus africana. And then continue agreed to submit to the Conference of the Parties. Now, we have a draft decision here. My suggestion would be that the committee agreed that it would be premature to publish to the CITES website the annex and so on, as mentioned by the United States, and agreed to submit to the Conference of the Parties the following drafted decisions. So we would have agreed twice. Would that suit you, the United States? You have the floor, and then I will ask the Secretariat's view. But the United States, would you agree?
Madam Chair, thank you. That sounds like a fine solution. Thank you.
Merci, États-Unis.
Thank you, the United States. So we have dealt with one proposed amendment. I would now like to turn to the concerns raised by Germany on item 19 and the redundancies in the draft decisions that we have on page 5. I think you have a point, sir. I would like to ask members as well as observer parties and observers if they would agree with Germany and the proposed amendments that Germany made. The floor is open. I see no requests for the floor. So on this particular item, I would conclude that the Plants Committee adopts a PC 25 Sum 2 as amended by the United States and Germany. We have concluded our consideration of this agenda item. Just give me a second to get my papers in order so I can keep track of things. As I suggested earlier at the beginning of our meeting, we are now going to deal with agenda items 16.1 and 16.2. These items are going to be dealt with together, and once we've dealt with 16.1 and 2, the floor will be open. We're looking at Malagasy palisanders and rosewoods and ebonies. We are going to start with the report of Madagascar on the implementation of Decision 1896, that is to say, relating to PC 2516-1. Then, after Madagascar has started, the Secretariat will take the floor. Madagascar, you have the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I'm going to try to give you a summary account of progress made by Madagascar with respect to the scientific side of Decision 1896 on Dalbergia and Diospyros, particularly paragraphs A, B, and D. With respect to para A, on the identification of different species with a trade value, the two genus of Dalbergia and Diospyros are now undergoing a scientific taxonomic study by the Consortium of Madagascar Precious Wood. The team of researchers is made up of researchers from the Antananarivo University working with international research institutions. Since the species was listed in Appendix 2 in 2013, a national reference collection with 2,600 herbarium specimens and more than 4,500 wood, branch, and trunk specimens have been put together in the reference wood collection at the University of Antananarivo. With respect to paragraph B and NDFs for these species that have a commercial value, the FAO-FLEGT program has undertaken a scientific inventory and put together a framework in order to develop NDFs. We have taken a didactic approach when it looks to the NDFs for two species of Dalbergia, Dalbergia lemurica and Dalbergia suarensis, which has been tested on two sites in the southwest and the north. And then the capacity building of the scientific and management authorities with respect to inventory development, and thirdly, scientific research in order to ensure that legislation on precious woods can be amended. There are three species, Dalbergia trichocarpa, Dalbergia chlorocarpa, and Dalbergia normandi, have met the conditions for NDFs. On para D, relating to the identification materials for wood and its parts and derivatives, three labs are currently working on this within at the Antananarivo University, the Plant Anatomy Lab and the Molecular Biology Lab. And there is work being done on anatomy as well as molecular research and spectrometry, looking at precious woods of commercial value. 16 species of Dalbergia and 11 of Diospyros are currently being looked into. And we have taken further steps this year in order to ensure that we can have macroscopic images that are automated so they can be used on smartphones, and that means that these methods can be used in the field in the two major wood producing regions, Menabe and Antananarivo. Furthermore, after the intersessional working group was set up by SC72, we have made scientific progress. So with respect to the decision taken by the committee. This year we have a pilot project underway associated with inventories of seized woods that the state now has control over. This has been funded by the ITTO, and we have wood samples that will be collected. By way of conclusion, in the 2 years to come there will be more information and scientific data available for the sustainable management of these two genus in order to help us make further headway. We would like to thank our technical and financial partners, particularly the EU, the United States through USAID, the CITES Secretariat, the ITTO, the FAO, the GIZ, the WRI, and the Belgian Scientific Authority as well as the Swiss Scientific Authority. Thank you for your attention, and thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank Madagascar for this presentation. I would like to give the floor to the Secretariat so they can deal with 16.2. You have the floor, Secretariat.
Madame la Présidente, COP18 a adopté les décisions.
Thank you, Madam. COP18 adopted these decisions on Madagascar, palisanders and rosewoods. The Secretariat continues to support Madagascar in the implementation of this decision and will present the progress made with respect to these decisions, paragraphs A to D of the decision. The Secretariat would also recall that SC 72, and at the request of Madagascar, came to play an advisory role in order to help Madagascar implement Decision 1896. The working group is chaired by Madagascar and includes the US, Ireland, Kenya, Morocco, Nepal, Nicaragua, and the European Union. Since this advisory group was set up, it has met twice online, as Madagascar has indicated in their report. On paragraph A of Decision 1896, which asks Madagascar to identify the main commercially valuable species of the genera Dalbergia and Diospyros, the Secretariat has noted that considerable progress has been made, as Madagascar has indicated. On B, the Secretariat would note that progress has been made with respect to NDFs for 2 species of Dalbergia. Generally speaking, there has been things have been slowed down by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, there has been some progress made, which means that we can envisage NDFs for commercially valuable species being prepared. On paragraph C, Madagascar has been asked to establish an export quota, but that has not been done. On D, Madagascar is invited to continue the production of identification materials for timber and timber products. The Secretariat would note that considerable progress has been made, as Madagascar has told us in their report. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank the Secretariat for their report. I would now like to invite committee members, observer parties and observers to take the floor in that order. Committee members, first of all, the floor is open. I don't see any requests for the floor from committee members. Parties, observer parties, would you like to take the floor? Observers? Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me and see me? Okay. With reference to Decision 1896 of the Conference of the Parties on Malagasy, Dalbergia and Diospyros, Switzerland acknowledges the achieved objectives and ongoing efforts by Madagascar concerning paragraphs A, B, and D of that decision. We are grateful to Madagascar and to the numerous international institutions and experts supporting Madagascar for their efforts. We take note that, at least apparently, so far no NDF has been produced for Malagasy, Dalbergia and Diospyros, although progress is ongoing. However, Switzerland regrets the lack of information in the submitted report, particularly on paragraphs E and F of the decision. We especially miss information about control and enforcement measures against illegal logging and export, and about securing and transparently managing timber stockpiles. Switzerland invites Madagascar to make every effort to close these gaps as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci. La Suisse,
I thank Switzerland. I now give the floor to ITTO. You have the floor.
I hope you can hear me. I'm referring specifically to paragraph F of Decision 1896, which called on Madagascar to, subject to available funding, secure the stockpiles, including undeclared and hidden stocks of timber of these species in Madagascar. And as the representative of Madagascar referred to, ITTO has recently signed an agreement with the Ministry of Environment, Ecology and Forests to implement a pilot project on the stockpiles that are currently under the government's control, with a view to enumerating them in the first place and then marking them in such a way that it makes it possible to know what is happening to the wood in those stockpiles and make sure there's no additional wood being added, etc., which was a big concern as committee members who were in Sochi when we discussed the use plan for these stockpiles will recall. I just want to, while I have the floor, thank a lot both the World Bank in Madagascar, who is partnering with us on this project together with the Madagascar government, and the CITES Secretariat, who played a big role in getting this project off the ground. There were numerous bottlenecks and hurdles to jump over, including relatively mundane things like establishing a project bank account. But finally, we managed to achieve it with several teleconferences, and we hope, in reference to what the delegate of Switzerland just said, that Madagascar will soon be able to report some concrete progress on enumerating and marking the stockpiles that are currently under government control. What we really hope is that if they do a good job on this project, there may be funding made available to extend the work to the stockpiles that are not under the government's control, which is a large part of the problem that we're trying to deal with here. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
merci ITTO pour vos...
I thank the ITTO for your very relevant statement, and now I see no further request for the floor. Secretariat, you have the floor.
To specify also in response to the remark by Switzerland, and thank you very much also for ITTO for the quick information update on what's happening with the stockpile issue in Madagascar, that Decision 1896 contains elements that are scientific, and these are the ones that Madagascar and the Secretariat reported on, from paragraph A to paragraph D, and a number of issues that have to do with enforcement and stockpile management, for which Madagascar traditionally and as usually reports to the Standing Committee, not to the Plants Committee. And these are the ones referred to by Switzerland by ITTO in from paragraph E to paragraph H. So on this occasion, and the Secretariat as well in its report has focused on those elements in this decision that are pertinent to the Plants Committee, which are the scientific elements from paragraph A to D. And I believe that is the reason why Madagascar has not included in its report, or the Secretariat in its report for that matter, information on paragraphs E to H on this occasion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, le secrétariat.
I thank the Secretariat for their response. So they have responded to the comments we heard from the two speakers. So we can conclude by saying that the Plants Committee takes note of document PC25 Doc 16.1 and in particular the oral update provided by Madagascar. And we also take note of the report of the Secretariat in item 16.2. So we now close this item and we will go to the reports of the working groups, the in-session working groups. So we will review our documents PC 25 COM 1 through to COM 10. So on PC 25 COM 1, on guidance on the term artificially propagated, I would like to give the floor to the representative of Oceania, who chaired this working group. You have the floor.
The working group report is published in COM document PC 25 COM 1. In line with its mandate, the in-session working group reviewed the draft guidance in the annex to the addendum to document PC 25 Doc 22, discussed the publication of a consolidated version of the guidance on terms relating to artificially propagated, including incorporating it in a new edition of the publication, A Guide to the Application of CITES Source Codes, and considered the draft decisions in paragraph 5 of the addendum. The working group fulfilled its mandate in 2 video meetings and through written reviews of the current draft version of the guidance for the term artificially propagated, attached to document PC 25 Doc 22 addendum and presented in PC 25 Inf 22. The working group recommends that the committee agree to the Secretariat publishing a consolidated interim version of the guidance for the term artificially propagated on the CITES website as a standalone document after UNEP WCMC has submitted a revised version of the current draft guidance that incorporates as many of the received comments as possible within the timeframe, and being clear that it is an interim version that will be approved and expanded in the future. The revised version shall be published once the chair of the Plants Committee has, in consultation with the present working group, signed off on the revised version of the guidance. To this end, the working group recommends the Plants Committee agree to the continuation of the working group on guidance on the term artificially propagated, formed at PC 25, to enable the working group to review a consolidated version of the guidance until the date of approval of the guidance, but no later than December 2021. The working group also recommends the Plants Committee agree to submit draft decisions 19AA, 19BB and 19CC as contained in document PC 25 COM 1 to the 19th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to enable further revision and expansion of the guidance for parties on the term artificially propagated. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to see you're back with us.
Merci. J'essaie de prier.
Thank you. I'm praying that I won't disappear from the screen. So, I would now like to invite members of the committee, observer parties and observers to take the floor if they so wish. Microphone. Oh. I will give the floor to the Secretariat, who may have some further clarifications to provide after hearing the working group chair and the extension of the working group's activities.
Madam Chair, and yeah, thank you very much, Damien, for the good introduction. Chair, on reflection, the Secretariat would like to suggest some modifications to paragraph A, little I, and little and AII of the recommendations in document PC 25.1. And the purpose of these modifications would be twofold. Firstly, to make sure that the detailed comments of the working group on the draft guidance are captured in the record of this meeting of the Plants Committee. We would like to inform the committee that all comments received in the working group are published in information document PC25 INF 22. And we are very grateful for the working group for its hard work and the very useful comments that we received. And I think these need to be reflected in the meeting record. And secondly, we need to make sure that it is the chair of the Plants Committee who gives the final approval of the committee's comments on the guidance, rather than the working group. And therefore, Madam Chair, we propose to, and I'll read the new text for the two paragraphs A little I and A double I, as slowly as I can. So that would mean A, the chapeau text stays. That's fine. And little I would read as follows. The continuation of the review of the draft guidance on the term artificially propagated, incorporating as many of the comments made at PC 25, detailed in PC 25 in INF 22 as possible, to enable the chair of the PC, in consultation with the members of the in-session working group, to sign off on the interim version of the guidance for the term artificially propagated no later than by December 2021. And, double I, advise the Secretariat, after direction from the PC chair, to publish an interim version of the guidance on the term artificially propagated on the CITES website as a standalone document, making it clear that it is an interim version that will be improved and expanded in the future. I know, Madam Chair, that these are quite considerable changes. We can also communicate them perhaps in the chat so that everybody can follow in and read them slowly with us. If you want, I can repeat my text again. Thank you.
Merci, Secrétariat.
Thank you, Secretariat. So the amendments that you have brought to the recommendations of the working group look at the aspects of the working group which can continue until December 2021. And we require the agreement of the chair of the Plants Committee so that in consultation with the working group we can produce an interim version on the guidance of the term artificially propagated, and that this could be published on the CITES website. So I've summarized the amendments proposed by the Secretariat. I'd like to turn to members of the committee, the parties and observers for any comments, and if possible, maybe we could have the amendments reread. Secretariat, maybe you could repeat and then I will open the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll read again very slowly. And you can find the text also in the chat, so that you can follow it with us. So little I would read: the continuation of the review of the draft guidance on the term artificially propagated, incorporating as many of the comments made at PC 25, detailed in PC 25 INF 22 as possible, to enable the chair of the PC, in consultation with the members of the in-session working group, to agree or to sign off, to agree on the interim version of the guidance for the term artificially propagated no later than by December 2021. And advise the Secretariat, after direction from the PC chair, to publish an interim version of the guidance on the term artificially propagated on the CITES website as a standalone document, make it clear that it is an interim version that will be improved and expanded in the future. So that's the text, and perhaps instead of sign off, we can better use agree, which seems to be more in line with the normal CITES language. And other than that, Madam Chair, we are totally supportive of the draft decision that the working group also put forward to continue this work after COP19, and we fully support that work. Thank you.
Okay. Merci, Secretariat.
I thank the Secretariat. So I think now everyone will have been able to follow. You have spoken very slowly. I'd like to open the floor first to the USA and then HCPC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States would appreciate some clarification with regard to consulting with the members of the in-session working group, since we note that the in-session working group, our understanding is that that working group was intended only to exist during this meeting, and so to continue it after this meeting, we're somewhat confused by how that would occur. We also wonder if it would be preferable that the consultation would occur with the members of the Plants Committee, and that those members would then be able to consult with the countries in their regions and outside experts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you to the United States of America. Now we have HSI, and then I would ask the Secretariat to respond. But first of all, I have the representative of Oceania, the chair of the working group, who would like to take the floor. So, the chair of the working group, you have the floor.
Damien? Oui, vous avez la parole. J'espère que je suis toujours à l'écran, moi.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There, thank you.
Just to respond to the USA's question about why it would continue, there was quite a lot of discussion and changes suggested as is presented in InfDoc 22. The working group felt that we needed more time to allow UNEP WCMC to address the suggested changes and then give the working group a chance to review that prior to putting it to the PC chair to publish by the Secretariat. The feeling of the working group was that we would not want to see this document wait until after COP19. The preference was to get the interim guidance out for parties as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Working Group. So, you indicate that this request to extend the mandate
la représentante de la région américaine.
Is very specific. Now I have a request of floor from the representative of the North America region. I will give the floor first of all to the representative of North America and then to the Secretariat, then HSI.
Vous avez la parole, Madame Rosemary Niam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recognize the importance of this work, as just said by the chair. I guess I agree with what the United States said, and I guess I look to Tom for some clarification, because in some of the other working groups, we were told that work could not continue. And so I'm a bit puzzled by the wording, as the U.S. has asked for a clarification there, how this working group can continue in its present form. We understand the chair can consult with whoever with other members of the committee, but not necessarily that this working group continues. So I guess I seek guidance from Tom on the rules of procedure here.
Merci, Madame la représentante de la région Amérique du Nord. Effectivement, le secrétariat a la parole pour...
I thank the representative of North America region, and we will now give the floor to the Secretariat so they can respond on the modalities for the working group. You have the floor, Secretariat. We
explained in our intervention the working group actually ceases to operate at COP at PC25, but we would recommend that the chair of the Plants Committee and the Secretariat continue to work with the members of the working group to for their advice to continue until this task is finished, and that is the Plants Committee and the Plants Committee chair that signs off on the final work. The task of this working group is very precise. Is to help the Secretariat, to advise the Secretariat on guidance that it should publish. What the working group, or what happens with this particular task, does no longer go to the Standing Committee, doesn't go to the COP. It is to be published by the end of this year. That's one thing. So the type of work is very precise, very narrow, very strict. The second thing is that we believe that the working group ceases to work now, as all working groups come to an end at ACMPC meetings. They are established by, but come to an end also at the end at ACMPC meetings. But it is the Plants Committee, and perhaps indeed, as the United States suggested, the Plants Committee members, the full membership, and not only the chair, that should sign off and agree on actually what type of guidance the Secretariat can publish and what type of comments actually the Plants Committee can give to help the Secretariat publish these guidance by the end of the year. The only nuance that we have inserted in our text is that this may also involve consultation with the members of the working group that have actually contributed quite significantly and well in this working group effort. And I hope that's clear.
Merci, Secretariat.
I would like to thank the Secretariat. Let me now ask the United States and the North America representative if these explanations meet their concerns. And then I will give the floor to Mexico and then HSI. Could I first of all ask the representative of the North American region to take the floor? You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that explanation from the Secretariat, with the very precise language, we can accept that explanation. We would urge, though, that, as Tom said, that the members of the Plants Committee also be included in this. So not just whoever was in the working group into session, but that the Plants Committee chair consults with the members as well, as Tom suggested. And with that precise wording, hopefully reflected in the summary record, so that there's an understanding of why this sort of exception was made. Thank you.
Merci. Donc là, je...
Thank you. I see Mexico has requested the floor. Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta, y buen día para todos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and greetings to everyone. We would like to express our support for the United States. We think that there should be consultations with members of the working group and members of the Plants Committee. If we take that approach, that will mean that those who were not able to participate in the working group meetings will be able to have their say as well, which would be a more democratic approach to these matters. Thank you, Madam.
Merci, Mexique. Donc maintenant, la parole à HSI. Après, je reviendrai pour faire une sorte de résumé de ce qui a été dit.
Thank you. HSI has the floor now, and then I will summarize. And thank you for your patience, HSI. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Merci, Madame la Présidente. This is just a technical point in reference to decision 19.AA. It's a concern I raised in the working group as well, which is it would appear from the wording that the publication of the revised version would be dependent on the availability of external funding to the Secretariat. And this is something I was concerned about. That if for some reason that funding were not available, would that mean that a revised version could not appear? And if that is the case, do we need to have any modification of any kind to this wording to ensure that some sort of revision will appear whether external funding is available or not? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci. Donc, je vais, avant de revenir vers le secrétariat et vers vous, je vais demander au président du groupe de travail s'il peut apporter des commentaires.
Let me invite the chair of the working group to come in on this HSI statement. Please go ahead. Could I ask Oceana if you have any views on this, Damien? Please go ahead.
Apologies, there's a bit of a delay. Just firstly, I'd like to say that I support the inclusion of consultation of the PC members as well as the working group. I think that is a good suggestion from the United States and supported by Mexico and the member for North America. As far as the subject to external funding, I guess I would take my advice from the Secretariat whether or not we need to include this language or whether we can change it as to whether or not they need to find additional funds to support UNEP WCMC to continue on with the revisions as requested in the decisions and the recommendations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci. Donc,
I thank you. Now I'll come back to the Secretariat. We've heard the United States, the representative North America region, HSI, and Mexico. And so it emerges that we should modify subparagraph I, Roman I, on the consultation of the working group members, not just the chair, but the members of the working group, the Secretariat, and members of the Plants Committee. We also, I've noted, on the implementation of Decision 19AA for the Secretariat, and dependent on external funding.
Did very well, I believe. And thank you very much for also helping us to even strengthen the language of little I. I think it makes total sense to involve both PC members and working group membership in helping with the guidance. With regard to 19AA, I'm afraid that that's the way it is. The Secretariat has no core funding to commission revisions like this, and many of the decisions, much of the work that the Secretariat has to do, it will start with subject to external funding. And so this decision is not different from many others that we have adopted and we will adopt actually during this PC meeting as well. So in that regard, just leave it as is. It will depend on external funding whether we can commission this revision that the decision proposes. And we as you know, we are doing everything to make sure that external funding are allowing us to undertake the work that the Conference of the Parties ask us to undertake. And to be honest, we have been quite successful in the last years. So also in this, we will need external funding, but let's hope that we will be able to secure this external funding for undertaking this work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, Secretariat.
Thank you to the Secretariat. Unfortunately, money and funds are always essential, but in the room we have potential donors. This is a little call to be able to implement this decision. So I will come to the conclusion of this item by saying the following. The Plants Committee adopts the recommendations contained in document PC 25com.1 as amended by the Secretariat, the North America region, Mexico, the United States of America. And I think I have covered everyone. Is that right, Secretariat? So, thank you. So now we will go on to document PC 25com2. I beg your pardon, says the chair. PC 25com2, which will be introduced by the chair of the working group, that is the representative of Europe, Ursula Mosel. You have the floor. Moser, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The working group report is published in document PC 25com2. In line with its mandate, the in-session working group considered the information in document PC 25, document 25 and its addendum and annexes, plus PC 25 Inf 7 and Inf 18, discussed key gaps in knowledge and recommendations to address the sustainable use and conservation of these species, considered whether any Boswellia species could meet the criteria for listing in the appendices, and also considered the pertinence of extending or revising decisions 18.205 to 18.208. The working group conducted its work in a video meeting and by email. The working group recommends the Plants Committee to note the information contained under paragraph 1 of PC 25com2, including that good knowledge exists about some Boswellia species in certain places, that the level of knowledge varies and is not consistent across all species and range states, and that document PC 25, Doc 25, and its addendum outline remaining gaps in knowledge comprehensively. Harvest of many species for international trade is often not sustainable, and several species currently traded meet the listing criteria for inclusion in Appendix 2. Range states, may wish to consider including Boswellia species in CITES Appendix 3 if they require the support of other parties to support national regulation. That there is potential for trade to shift to other species, that trade analyses are however difficult, and that further work is needed to better understand lookalike considerations with other Boswellia and Commiphora species, and that concerns are country-specific and also related to communities who depend on these species and to conservation issues of Boswellia woodlands as an ecosystem. The working group also recommends the Plants Committee to agree to submit draft decisions for the consideration of the Conference of the Parties as contained in paragraph 2 of PC 25.2. The draft decisions direct the Secretariat to share information received through the Consultancy on Boswellia SPP that was recently published on the website of the Secretariat, request the Plants Committee to further review available information and to consider appropriate listing annotations, and invite parties to consider listing Boswellia species to which they are range states in Appendix 3. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, Madame la...
I thank the chair of the working group. So I now invite members of the Plants Committee to take the floor, if they so wish, and then parties, followed by observers. The floor is open. The interpreter's having difficulty hearing the chair. I think the chair said there were no requests for the floor. So the result, we will now come to the... I was about to conclude, says the chair. I have a request for the floor from the United States of America. You have the floor. There is no sound. United States, we cannot hear you.
Sinon, vous avez la possibilité de mettre vos commentaires dans le chat.
Otherwise, you could put the comments in the chat if we still can't hear you. The interpreters cannot hear the delegate from the United States.
Très faiblement, très faiblement.
We can. It's not very strong, but we can hear you, says the chair.
Donc allez-y, vous avez la parole.
Okay. We appreciate the opportunity to comment briefly. We appreciate the ongoing work on this important taxon and look forward to receiving additional information. We would like to take the opportunity to request additional information on the status of the consultancy. We note that the job opening for this consultancy, which was in February of this year, had indicated that the consultancy was anticipated to begin in March of 2021. And so we would appreciate any update on the status of initiating that work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, les États-Unis.
Thank you, United States. I think that is an issue that may require the response by the Secretariat. Secretariat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This consultancy has not yet been initiated because there's still an issue of selection of candidates. We had good, actually, wide field of interested participants, people that experts that applied for this particular consultancy, and the selection process has not been finalized at the moment. Thank you.
Merci.
I thank the Secretariat. United States, I think that answers your question. I see no further request for the floor. So we can conclude this item. The committee, the Plants Committee, adopts the recommendations contained in the document PC 25-2. Very well. So we conclude this item. We will now move to the next item, which is PC 25-3 on a Dalbergia checklist. And I would like to give the floor to the nomenclature specialist of the Plants Committee, Ms. Klopper. You have the floor.
For the valuable discussions on the Dalbergia species checklist and for their comments and suggestions towards improving the final output of this work. We would also like to express our sincere gratitude to the team at Royal Botanic Gardens Kew for all their hard work and their commitment to this project, as well as for their innovative thinking in the design of the species pages that will accompany the checklist. In line with the mandate and recommendations of the working group, as shown in document PC 25-3, our discussions focused on considering document PC 25.34 and its addendum, and the progress achieved thus far by Kew in developing the Dalbergia checklist commissioned by the Secretariat. Madam Chair, thanks to the fruitful discussions we had, the working group recommends that the Plant Committee agrees to 1. Continue to provide feedback to the nomenclature specialist and the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew on the CITES checklist for Dalbergia species, including but not limited to the chapter structure, content and format of the nomenclature chapter, the spreadsheet of Dalbergia species names, distribution information, and the draft species profile, including views on the field and icons it will contain. Deadline for such feedback is the 9th of July 2021. Then secondly, request the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew to incorporate as appropriate the feedback received to the checklist so that the Secretariat can circulate an agreed version via a notification to the parties in line with the process outlined in paragraph 2I of Resolution Conf 12.11 Rev Cop 18 on standard nomenclature. And thirdly, submit for consideration to the parties in time for COP19 a final consolidated version of the CITES checklist for Dalbergia species for inclusion in the standard nomenclature reference for this genus. Concerning steps to follow towards an annotated checklist following COP19, the working group recommends that the committee 1. Requests the Secretariat to consult with experts to obtain details of what this work will entail, and secondly, proposes to the Conference of the Parties the extension and revision of decisions 18.307 and 18.308 as contained in paragraph 8E of the addendum of document PC 25.34. Based on this, I invite the committee to therefore adopt the recommendations contained in document PC 25.3. And then additionally, I would like to acknowledge that in addition to the discussions relating to our mandate, very valuable feedback regarding Dalbergia was received from Cambodia. This feedback suggests the mobilization of resources to support range states to conduct non-detrimental and legal acquisition findings for Dalbergia species, to assess current management, harvest control and monitoring, to plant 1 billion Dalbergia seedlings to support the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration as part of global landscape restoration and species recovery, and to create a fund for planting CITES-listed timber trees and for conducting non-detrimental findings that would allow for a more diverse and sustainable revenue stream for investing in non-detrimental findings from multiple stakeholder, public and private sector partnerships. These recommendations are, however, not reflected in the report from this working group as it falls outside its mandate. I invite the committee to note the remarks from Cambodia since they are relevant to ongoing work relating to, for example, non-detrimental findings and the initiative on the resolution on CITES and forests. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would like to thank the nomenclature specialist for the Plants Committee for that very clear report. I do feel that the Secretariat might just like to take the floor on some of the points raised in your report. You have the floor, Secretariat.
And really, I would like to congratulate the working group for this excellent report. Yeah, it's a minor issue that we noted and would like to bring to your attention. It is, of course, the CITES Secretariat that is at the moment working with and hiring Kew Gardens to undertake to establish or to create a Dalbergia checklist, and so perhaps to reflect this bit better, it might be perhaps more appropriate in recommendation II, which now reads that the Plants Committee to request the Kew Gardens to incorporate. It might be easier or more appropriate to say invite the Secretariat to request Kew Gardens, etc. To invite the Secretariat to request Kew to incorporate as appropriate the feedback, etc. It's a minor thing, but for the Plants Committee it might be difficult to do this. The Secretariat is contractually in contact with Kew and can convey the Plants Committee's wishes better, I believe. Thank you.
Merci, Secrétariat, pour cette précision.
Thank you for that clarification, Secretariat. The floor is open now to Plant Committee members, observer parties, and observers. The floor is open. I don't see any requests for the floor. I would therefore like to say that the Plants Committee adopts the recommendations in PC Com 3 as amended by the Secretariat. Thank you. Which brings us to the next agenda item. Annotations for Appendix 2, orchids. The working group on this matter was chaired by the representative of Europe on the Plants Committee, Ursula Moser. You have the floor now, Ursula Moser, to introduce the working group report. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That goes very fast. Okay, so in line with its mandate, the in-session working group considered priorities for additional research as proposed in paragraph 8 of document PC25 Doc 37. Also considered the amendment to annotation #4 as proposed by Switzerland in paragraph 11 of document PC25 Doc 38, and the best way of contributing findings in this regard to the ongoing discussions in the Standing Committee's intersessional working group on annotations, and also considered to take into account the adoption of the draft decisions contained in the annex to document PC25 Doc 38 addendum. The working group discussed during a video meeting and by email. Its report is published as PC25-COM4. The working group recommends the Plants Committee to note the information contained in paragraphs 1 and 2 of PC25-COM4, including that further research is needed, but to appropriately narrow its focus, the Plants Committee should seek cooperation with parties and relevant non-party stakeholders. The focus might be on source countries that have wild harvest of medicinal and or edible orchids, and that fieldwork is likely to be necessary to inform the discussions in CITES. Switzerland considers submitting its proposal to the 19th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, and that further work on orchid annotations be undertaken in close collaboration with any standing committee discussions related to annotations. The working group recommends the Plants Committee to invite the Standing Committee's intersessional working group on annotations to consider the proposal by Switzerland in the context of its currently ongoing discussions. The working group further recommends the committee to agree to submit the amended draft of decisions contained in paragraph 3 of PC25-COM4 for the consideration of the Standing Committee. These draft decisions request the Secretariat, subject to available resources, to commission research into the conservation impacts of trade in orchid specimen on wild orchid populations, to inform assessments of the conservation impacts of potential future exemptions of orchid specimens in international trade. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would like to thank the working group chair for that report. The floor is open. I would like to hear any possible comments you might have on the report on COM4. Members of the Plants Committee? I see no requests for the floor. Observer parties? No. Observers? I see no requests for the floor. The Plants Committee adopts the recommendations in PC25-COM4. Thank you. We are now going to move on to the next item. Nomenclature. This report is to be presented by the nomenclature specialist for the Plants Committee. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the members of the working group for the valuable discussions on the nomenclature topics and for their comments and suggestions that allowed us to very productively work through the ambitious mandate of this working group, and to reach consensus on a way forward on all topics under discussion. The outcomes of our agreements are reflected in document PC25.5, which includes a detailed recommendation for the Plants Committee to agree to the following. A. Concerning the genus Aloe, submit for consideration of the Conference of the Parties at COP19 the inclusion of the supplement contained in the annex to the report in the standard nomenclature references of Resolution Conf 12.11 Ref COP 18. It is also recommended to remind the parties that all Lomatophyllum names are scientific synonyms of CITES listed aloe species and are thus regulated under the Convention. The working group further recommends the committee to agree on the preparation of an update of the aloe standard nomenclature references separate to that of Pachypodium through the proposals of the draft decisions contained in paragraph A of the report. B. Concerning the genus Pachypodium, agree to update the standard nomenclature reference through the draft decisions outlined in paragraph B of the report. C. Concerning Cactaceae, agree that the preparation of a 4th edition of the CITES Cactus Checklist should be assigned a low priority. Agree also to propose the extension of decisions 18.304 to 18.306 with revisions reflecting a reference to COP20. Lastly, to note that concerning the Appendix 1 synonymy of Astecium ritteri and Astecium valdesi under the current nomenclature reference, that Mexico is assessing the pertinence of preparing an amendment proposal, but may not complete their assessment in time for the document submission deadline of COP19. Therefore, the nomenclature specialist will, as part of the proposed nomenclatural changes to be put before the parties at COP19, include a proposal to reinstate Astecium valdesi as a separate species and restore it to Appendix 2. D. Concerning the Diospyros species and the populations of Madagascar, as an interim measure, agree for a new time-stamped download of the genus from Vascular Plants of Madagascar to be adopted as a standard nomenclature reference in place of the existing reference for these species. And additionally, in order to update the standard nomenclature reference for this taxa, agree to submit the draft decisions as contained in paragraph D of the report. E. Concerning Orchidaceae, in collaboration with the United Kingdom and Korea, agree to submit a new standard nomenclature reference for Appendix 2 listed orchids based on progress contained in documents PC25.32.1 and 32.2, as well as additional feedback from range states and relevant experts. If adopted, agree also to propose the draft decisions contained in paragraph E of the report with a view to seek feedback to the new nomenclature reference and continue to update the standard nomenclature reference for Appendix 2 orchids. F. Concerning taxa species, agree to retain the current standard nomenclature references and submit the draft decisions as outlined in paragraph F of the report. G. Concerning Gilbertia species, agree to amend the standard nomenclature reference regarding the synonyms of Gilbertia pellegriniana as outlined in paragraph G of the report. It is also recommended that Angola be added as a range state for Gilbertia pellegriniana, and that a comment be added to the nomenclature notes field of the CITES website, including Species Plus, that careful attention should be paid to the authors of these scientific names. And then finally, H, agree to include in its COP19 to COP20 nomenclature work plan the priorities outlined in paragraphs 12 to 15 of the addendum document to document PC25 Doc 31, as well as consideration of the enforcement-related implications of the updates of standard nomenclature references for flora species listed in the appendices. Madam Chair, based on the careful deliberations and agreements of the working group, I extend an invitation for the committee to adopt these recommendations contained in report PC25 COM5. Thank you very much.
I thank the nomenclature specialist, and I now open the floor for any comments. Members of the Plants Committee? No request for the floor. Observer parties? The floor is yours. I see no request for the floor. The floor is open for any observers who wish to comment. I see no request for the floor. So, the Plants Committee adopts the recommendations contained in document PC25 COM5. Thank you. So now we will go to document PC25 COM6. I am going to read the report of the working group, which covers the subject of towards a resolution on CITES and forests. As the chair of this working group, the report that you will find in document PC25 COM6, and I'd like to thank the members of the working group for the fruitful and cordial exchanges. To recall, the drafting of this resolution of a strategic nature is an initiative by the Secretariat. As it covers forests, the Plants Committee was invited to make comments. The working group highlighted the relevance of having such a resolution, and there was no consensus on the way of achieving that. So 3 options were proposed, and I will submit them to you by reading the recommendations of the working group. They read as follows. The working group recommends that the Plants Committee A. Take note of the general agreement to draw up a resolution for CITES and forests. B. To recognize that views on the process for pursuing such an initiative differ. C. Recognize that at least 3 options have been identified for developing a new resolution on CITES and forests as indicated below, but that the working group was unable to reach consensus on the preferred option or way forward. So, option 1, inviting the Secretariat to produce a draft strategic resolution on CITES and forests for consideration at the Standing Committee's 74th meeting, SC 74, accompanied by draft decisions to allow for the assessment of the implementation of the new resolution in the COP19 to COP20 intersessional period, should it be adopted at COP19. Possible text for such draft decisions is shown in Annex 1 of the present document. Option 2, inviting the Secretariat to submit draft decisions for consideration at SC 74 to allow consideration of the benefit of pursuing a strategic resolution on CITES and forests during the COP19 to COP20 intersessional period. Possible text for such draft decisions is shown in Annex 2 of the present document. Option 3, inviting the Secretariat to submit to the Chair of the Standing Committee a recommendation to initiate an intersessional decision-making procedure to establish an intersessional working group that would be tasked with consideration of this initiative and report the outcomes of its work to SC 74, noting that in accordance with Rule 20.1 of the Rules of Procedure of the Standing Committee, this procedure is intended for matters of urgency that require a decision to be made between meetings of the committee. And D, consider the 3 options discussed by the working group, agree on the preferred option or way forward, and invite the Secretariat to inform the Standing Committee accordingly at its 74th meeting, or, as appropriate, its chair. So that is the reading of the recommendations from the working group, which is contained in document PC 25-6. The floor is open. Members of the committee, the floor is yours if you wish to comment. We have a I'm going to try and follow this in order. We have the representative of the Central, South America and Caribbean region, Fabiola Núñez. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? Good. So I would like to say that in the Central, South America and Caribbean region, we support option 1. We support option 1, and as you have said, within the working group there was a general support for the drawing up of a resolution of CITES and forests, and now we have these 3 options before us on how to achieve it. We see option 1 as the best, because it's important to indicate that it's a strategic resolution, and so we can count on the trust and trust in the support of the Secretariat for drawing up the proposal. We also see that the draft decisions will facilitate the evaluation of its implementation, and that the Plants Committee can provide technical and scientific assistance for its review or updating. It's important to indicate that this is the only option which will allow us to be able to consider the proposed resolution at the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee, and if that is the case, parties could adopt it at COP19. So I'd like to repeat that with this resolution, it provides us with an opportunity to increase the visibility of CITES contribution to the conservation of forests, and they are key regions, ecosystems for our region. So we consider that the resolution it can be framed in the strategic vision of CITES towards 2030 and will help the promotion of a better synergy between conventions, and it will increase the possibilities of using existing mechanisms to mobilize resources in the application of the CITES Convention. Thank you very much. I thank the representative of the Central, South America and Caribbean region, and I note that the region was in favor of option 1 of the 3 offered. Now I give the floor to Europe. Paolo Carmo, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Chair. And now I'll speak.
Well, we discussed internally these 3 options, and well, as the colleagues from South America and the Caribbean just said, we all recognize the importance of such a resolution, and we all see the advantages of having such a resolution regarding CITES and forests. However, well, we recognizing the importance of having it the sooner as possible, we don't want anyway to give too much rush to the process and have a resolution without discussing it thoroughly and with a sound basis of discussion. Considering these 3 options and looking at option 3, it could be a good solution, but we realize that it has procedural problems, and probably it was not possible to have this way forward, because to decide on the matters of urgency of this proposal, I don't know if it was according to the rules of the standing committee, the rules of procedure. We have some doubts that it could be accepted as an urgent issue to be discussed, to settle this process as previewed in this option. Regarding this, we discussed that possibly a mixed solution between option 1 and 2 could be the best way to go forward, and merging option 1 and 2 and asking the Secretariat to present to the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee the draft resolution, but without the recommendations that are in Annex 1 of the document that was presented. Probably that could be the way forward. Recognizing the importance of this strategic resolution. Being a strategic resolution, we consider that it's more a matter for the Standing Committee, and we, as Plants Committee, recognize the importance of it, but we sent to the Standing Committee, we put on the hands of the Standing Committee the decision on this strategic resolution. It could be the way, and so the Secretariat could present it to the Standing Committee at the 74th meeting, and then leave the decision on the hands of the Standing Committee, recognizing the importance of this of this resolution, because as we all we all said all in the interventions in the working group, so it could be one option, but not using the recommendations that were proposed and that were in Appendix 1 of the document. But we can discuss it better. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not making the job any easier for us, because now you're proposing a fourth option, which would be a mix between option 1 and option 2. Okay, I take note, and I'm going to give the floor to the representative of the North America region, and then we will sum up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The North American region commends the chair of the Plants Committee for preparing a working group report that reflects the range of opinions expressed during discussion of the resolution on CITES and Forest Working Group. After participating in the working group discussions, we feel better informed as to the motivation expressed by many parties and the Secretariat for wishing to move quickly. By inviting the Secretariat to produce a draft strategic resolution on CITES and forests for consideration of the Standing Committee at its 74th meeting. Nonetheless, the North American region believes that such a resolution, no matter how strategically intended, will require technical consideration and scientific insights that reflect the complexity of forests and their increasing importance to the implementation of CITES. We remain unconvinced that the efficiencies of consolidating existing resolutions or increased potential to mobilize resources in support of forest projects justify limiting the involvement and technical input of the Plants Committee on something so important, or altering the normal process by which new resolutions are developed and adopted. As such, the North American region urges the Plants Committee to adopt the second option contained in the working group report, which invites the Secretariat to submit draft decisions for consideration at SC 74, so as to allow during COP19, COP20 intersessional period, thoughtful examination of the risks and benefits to CITES of pursuing a resolution on CITES and forests. And we would add that if no consensus is reached here in the plenary discussions, which we look forward to hearing, then we suggest passing options 1 and 2 to Standing Committee 74 for their decision. Option 3 to us seems to be, as Europe suggested, has problems with procedural, and we don't think can be accomplished in the time before SC 74. So we would urge, if there's no consensus, to move option 1 and 2. And then reacting to the suggestion of a new option by the European region, I guess we would say there's a phrase in the United States that the devil is in the details, and to us having a skeleton resolution does not have the details that we would need to give this deliberative consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of the North America region. So we have some options, another option. Now I would like to give the floor to, what I'd like to say is that the list for those who wish to take the floor is open. So members of the committee, parties and observers, if you wish to speak, now is the time. All right. I have Chile, who would like to take the floor. Chile, you have the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for having included this subject in the working agenda, because as a delegation we think it's extremely relevant to have the subject of forest and CITES species linked. And secondly, I'd like to ratify what was said by our regional representative in that we would support option 1, given that the strategic nature of this would allow for discussion at the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee, and it would look at providing the best protection to tree species listed in CITES and to link to other conventions, which is the trend in all international fora. Thank you.
Merci, Chili, pour...
I thank Chile for your intervention. Now I'd like to give the floor to Brazil.
Madam Chair, we'd just like to express again, like we did during the working group, that we think this resolution could be important. We do recognize that it is important to have a discussion on its content, but we think its main merit is to state clearly the idea that the protection of these species, the importance of having specific support to the sustainable use of these species, especially as we see, for example, now in the CITES tree species program, where we have been able to achieve important and practical results that bring effective results for the sustainable use of these tree species. At least that has been our experience with the project so far, and that is something that has to become a permanent feature of CITES and the support it gives to the countries and range states that have these species. This is a crucial aspect, and if we really want to improve the conservation of these species that are threatened with extinction, we need to find ways to achieve their sustainable use. So in that sense, we support option 1, but we do agree that the proposed decisions that are presented there, that if decisions that would evaluate a resolution if it was approved in COP19, we understand that these decisions might not be necessary at the moment, just like the representative from Europe said, since we still would have to discuss the resolution, and on the basis of this resolution discuss how it would be implemented and what would be its effects. So we support option 1, but we do agree that the decisions that are presented in Annex 1 might not be necessary at the moment. Thank you.
Microphone for the chair, please. We cannot hear the chair. I forgot to put my microphone on, says the chair. I thank Brazil, and I've taken note of their position on option 1. I now give the floor to the United States of America. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now? Thank you. So, in support of the intervention that was made by the North America representative, the United States would like to reiterate the fact that we have no opposition to evaluating the need for such a resolution, but we believe that it will be considered very carefully, and that will be very important in taking into consideration what elements should be included in such a strategic resolution if it is decided to move forward with it. And for example, we note that in the document before this committee that formed the basis for this working group, there is contemplation, for example, for the need to define the term tree. And we do not consider that a strategic issue. We consider that a technical issue. And so, although this is envisioned as being a strategic resolution, we note that there are considerable technical issues that would need to be taken into account as well. So we would like to move forward, as the North America representative indicated, in a careful and considerate manner, and therefore the United States reiterates our support for option 1. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, apologies, option 2. Thank you.
Thank you to the United States. I now give the floor to Canada. You have the floor, Canada.
Canada, vous avez la parole.
Canada, the floor is yours, Canada.
Il semble que
It would seem that there may be connection problems for Canada. So while we await for that to be resolved, are there any further requests for the floor? No further requests for the floor. Observers? Are there any wishes to speak on this item? Okay, there are no further requests for the floor. Canada hasn't been able to rejoin us. I have Malaysia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We share the same concerns as the representative of the United States, Europe, and several other parties. And since we had participated in the working group's deliberation, we share the same concerns. So in this respect, we may consider option 2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I see that Canada has appeared and then disappeared equally fast from the list. So I'll give the floor to China, then Mexico, and Canada. You will have the floor if you wish to speak then. So China, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair. China would like to support option 1. We think that there are many issues related to forestry and the CITES framework. However, these issues are included in several decisions and resolutions. We really need a strategic resolution which can give a more clear direction
for CITES parties. So until now, even we don't know what content of the strategic resolution will be included. We know its elements will come from several resolutions currently available. So we prefer option 1. Thank you.
Merci.
I thank the representative of China. I've taken note. Now I give the floor to Mexico. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As was mentioned by the representative of the North America region, there is a preference for option 2 because, as indicated in the document, under recommendation C2, option 2, it seems to me that that paragraph is very clear in allowing for the consideration of the benefits of such a strategic resolution. However, in Annex 2, it's not very clear how this assessment can be carried out because there's no language directed to the Secretariat for the preparation of said document. It says that it's the committee which will look at the value, but it doesn't suggest how it should be done. So it seems we're missing something to explain clearly how the Plants Committee can carry out an assessment of the benefits of drafting a consolidated resolution, which goes beyond identifying the various elements together, but looking at the added value. I can see there is support for option 1, there's a support for option 2. We're very interested in knowing what the added value is of such a resolution. So maybe we could amend option 2 to obtain that clarity so that the committee has more elements in its hands on the possible advantages, and then we would be able to take a decision on the subject. Thank you. I thank Mexico for their analysis, which is very relevant. I'm now going to give the floor to Germany and then Canada. If you are able to connect, we would be glad to hear you. So, Germany, you have the floor.
Until the distinguished delegate from Mexico, Ezekiel, has spoken, I thought I was confused about option 2, and there seems to be some problem in that the group notes that there is general support for developing a resolution on CITES and forests, and then in option 2, it is asked for consideration of the benefit of pursuing a strategic resolution. So if it is already agreed that such a resolution benefits CITES, then why should we go back to that? And I understood the representative from the US in the same way, that it's not looking into whether or not such a resolution should be brought forward, but that we need more time to discuss the content of such a resolution, and that some of the content would be of technical substance and therefore needs the considerations by the Plants Committee. Therefore, I'm not sure that option 2 is in any case drafted in the right way at the moment. But Mexico has said, okay, but they said they think it's exactly right like that. So I'm absolutely confused. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Germany. I was disconnected briefly, but let me make sure I'm following what your position is. If I'm not mistaken, you're not in favor of option 2, but does that mean that you have a choice, or would you be in favor of 1 or 3, or do you not have a position right now in favor of one of the 3 options? Could you clarify your position, please, Germany, as to which option you would favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Germany has said in the first discussion of this agenda item, we have already said that we think it's a bit premature to rush into a resolution right now, because we have already identified something which was not right according to our understanding. That was the merger with the GSPC resolution, which we found is not appropriate. This GSPC is more than forests. So option 1 is obviously not really what we are wanting to see. And option 2 is neither, because we don't think we should continue talking about whether we need it or not, because it seems to me it is agreed. And option 2 should be to continue the discussion on the substance. So a draft resolution produced by the Secretariat could be discussed by the Plants Committee. Of course, this would have to be post COP19, and that's the problem. And as so far I understand that this is possibly one of the victims of the pandemic situation at the moment, which nobody wanted, of course. Is that clear so far?
Oui, je pense que ouais, c'est plus clair.
Yes, I understand your position more clearly now. Thank you. I must confess that I was cut out at the very beginning of your second statement there, but I think I follow what you have said. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your indulgence in our working through our technical issues. Canada notes the discussion that has taken place and the strong interventions from both sides. We would like to sort of sum up what's been said from our perspective, to note that indeed the resolution has been decided as something that would be useful for all, but we think that in the working group discussions and in plenary, it was noted that the benefits and the reason for the timetable that is being proposed have not yet been made clear. We are unclear as to how such a resolution would synergize well with existing multilateral environmental agreements, of which many parties are taking place in. We note the comment of the United States that issues around defining just the definition of trees, the references to forest genetic resources, take us somewhere that requires careful consideration. And Canada would support the suggestion of the North American region that option 2 is a preference, but it would be useful to take options 1 and 2 to the Standing Committee, where hopefully a real face-to-face meeting will take place rather than a virtual meeting, and opportunity for full discussion of the benefits and the possible challenges of a resolution of this type can be fully examined. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Canada. I'm glad that you were able to take the floor. I would now like to give the floor to China. China, you've requested the floor again? To be followed by WCMC. China, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to take the floor again. We think there might be some compromise solutions. Is it possible to revise option 2 as follows? Inviting the Secretariat to submit draft decisions for consideration at SC 74 to allow drafting strategic resolution on CITES and forests during the COP19 to COP20 intersessional period. Possible text for such draft decision is shown in Annex 2 to the. Sorry, I don't think the last sentence is needed. That means we prefer to delete the word allow consideration to benefit of pursuing and replace it with the word drafting. Am I clear? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I did try to keep up with your suggestion, inviting the Secretariat to submit draft decisions for consideration at SC 74 in order to allow for the drafting a strategic resolution on CITES and forests during the COP19, COP20 intersessional period, and we would stop there. The rest of option 2 would be deleted. Is that correct, China? Have I got your proposal?
Oui, Chine, vous avez la parole pour si.
China, you have the floor just to let me know if I have understood your proposal properly.
Right. I think you'll catch my opinions. Thank you.
Okay. Merci.
Thank you. I would now like to give the floor to IWMC, and then I will try and sum up. IWMC, please. The speaker is inaudible.
Discussion de ce sujet important qui a déjà.
Thank you, Madam. This is a serious question, and we've already had discussions in plenary as well as in the working group. I think it would be a good idea for us to bear in mind that everyone recognizes the significance of forests for a whole range of reasons. Those who are interested in plants as well as those who are interested in animals. Given that this is a serious matter that also has a strategic side, this is work for the Standing Committee, the representatives of the Conference of the Parties. The Plants Committee should invite the Standing Committee to discuss this matter when they next meet. And the Standing Committee could then think about what kind of resolution the parties wish to have. And that would, of course, mean that the work would have to be done with the Plants Committee and the Animals Committee. It seems to me that the easiest thing would be to have the Plants Committee request that the Standing Committee consider the question of there being a resolution on CITES and forests as being useful for the purposes of the implementation of the convention. Thank you, IWMC. I'm now going to give the floor once again to the North America representative before trying to sum up our discussions. North America representative Rosemary Nyam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I had difficulty following the suggested compromise text that China offered. Could I ask that it be read very slowly so we could all digest it to make an informed decision, or put in the CUDA chat so that we can see the text that they're proposing, because I definitely did not capture all of it. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la représentante.
I would like to thank the North America representative. I will read it out quickly, if you like. China has proposed an amendment to option 2, inviting the Secretariat to submit draft decisions for consideration at SC 74 to allow for drafting a strategic resolution on CITES and forests during the COP19, COP20 intersessional period. The text would stop there. So possible text and so on would be deleted. So inviting the Secretariat and so on to allow for drafting a strategic resolution. Okay, I have listened to all of your statements. One thing is clear, there is no consensus on the option to go for, or if there is consensus, it is that option 3 is not supported. However, some have expressed support for option 1, and others have expressed support for option 2. I will give the floor to the Secretariat in a moment, but I simply wished to remind you that ours was an advisory role. One possibility might be for us to invite the Secretariat to transfer the options 1 and 2 to the Standing Committee, or the Chair of the Standing Committee. No preference has been expressed for 1 or 2. I've tried to add up supporters for one or the other, and opinion really is divided. Let me turn to the Secretariat. Is this one way that we could deal with this matter? Thank you.
First of all, we would very much like to thank the Plants Committee and all the parties and the observer organizations that intervened to show so much interest in this initiative. And thank you also for supporting this initiative, to agree that this is an interesting and valuable way forward for our convention to go with this strategic resolution. One thing perhaps I would like to, just for a technical matter, to try to clarify in response to, I think it was Germany. If you look at the addendum to document 12 for this Plants Committee meeting, you will see that the Secretariat specifies that the global plant conservation strategy should remain a standalone resolution. So there is no consideration at all for merging all of this in this strategic resolution. Other than that, Madam Chair, we have asked the Plants Committee for its advice on this resolution. We heard considerable interest in the resolution. We heard various ways in which we could take it forward, in which the Plants Committee considered it should be taken forward. As you say, we note that there is no consensus, but at the same time, I feel that parties are very, and Plants Committee members are very close to finding a way forward. I think that we heard also that a general feeling that the Standing Committee, being the one taking the most strategic decisions for this convention, is a forum in which the Secretariat should bring forward this approach and also the options. I think we heard several options, as you say. Option 1 was mentioned by some members. Option 2 has been amended by China. Also, we heard that the representative from Europe wanted to have option 2 without decisions. Somebody else supported option 2 with decisions. So there again, there are nuances to bear in mind, and we would be very happy to bring these nuances and the gist of our discussions here to the attention of the Standing Committee, with the note that option 3 has not been supported, as you mentioned, but make clear what has happened in the Plants Committee and some of advice, and actually bring forward what we heard and what we learned so far, and then bring this to the attention of the Standing Committee for its input. This has always been our intention, by the way, Madam Chair. But I would thank you all very much for the very interesting debate and useful inputs.
Thank you, Secretariat. Mexico has requested the floor. That will be the last statement on this item. Mexico, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, and also for the suggestion from China and comments from the Secretariat. I believe that again on document in option 2 in recommendations, there is some language that is key for Mexico and also our region on the consideration of the benefit of pursuing a strategic resolution. Maybe on the suggestion from China, if we include not only to prepare these decisions, but also focusing on consideration of the benefit of pursuing a strategic resolution, that can be a good way forward to allow a Standing Committee and later to see the benefits. I mean, it's not only to have a draft resolution, but where are the real benefits? If we can add language on that line, I think that can improve the suggestion from China. This is the important element because there is an inconsistency in the recommendation for option 2 with Annex 2. That is the part that is missing. It's not making clear that part of the to highlight the potential benefits of this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mexico. Could I ask you, sir, to give us your proposal so that we can see how you would suggest that option 2 could be amended to take up the China suggestion. China suggested to allow for the drafting of a strategic resolution. Could you ask us how you would change that? Thank you, sir.
We can add at the end to allow consideration of the benefit of pursuing a strategic resolution on CITES and forest. So that can complement the idea to what you just read. Thank you. I think since we are not ready yet to take any decision, we need more elements, and then we can convey these proposals, including these elements, to see these benefits. Thank you.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I think that is the last statement that we will have on this. I think we have heard enough to be able to draw conclusions on this item. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. sorry to take the floor again, but I think we've heard from these discussions from Mexico the importance of understanding the benefits. And I think that applies to option 1 too. So I would suggest that when the Secretariat presents these, if they are now going to present both option 1 and 2 to the Standing Committee, to provide some analysis of the benefits of this and the urgency, because if the Standing Committee has to decide, really, the difference between the two options is whether a resolution goes to COP19 or the work on the resolution continues post-COP19. I think for the Standing Committee to make an informed, deliberative decision, it needs to, as Mexico suggests, understand the benefits of such a resolution, which many of us still do not understand, and that's why we're where we are now. And so I would like to see, before we go to Standing Committee, that some attempt be made to do that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, the North America representative. I do think that we are all aware of the absence of any consensus on these options. That said, we do seem to agree that options 1 and 2 are the real options. The Plants Committee recommends that the Secretariat submit draft decisions submit a draft resolution without draft decisions. So we have 1 and 2. So considering the amendments that have been made to option 2 by China and Mexico, the Secretariat will draft proposals to put to the Standing Committee, and perhaps I should read this to you slowly. The Plants Committee recommends that the Secretariat submits a draft resolution on option 1 without the resolution in Annex 1, as well as the draft decisions in option 2 as amended by China and Mexico to the Standing Committee for its consideration. Am I making that clear? Could you please tell me if that is clear? Yes, I can hear you very well, says the Secretariat. But your camera is not working, madam, says the Secretariat. Well, as long as you can hear me, let's carry on, says the chair. I seem to be disconnected, or at least partly. But could I ask whether we can wind up our discussion on this item?
Connection with the chair of the Plants Committee. The last thing she said is whether there would be an agreement with her summary of the discussion on BC 25.6. Perhaps we can wait until she can reconnect before moving this forward, but that is the last thing she asked. Colleagues, I'm aware that the Plants Committee Chair had internet connection problems already this morning, and I believe they are difficult to resolve. We have still half an hour of our time to go to, and can I perhaps ask the Vice Chair, Rosemary Nem, to see if she can conclude this matter and move the agenda forward so that we don't lose too much time. I wonder if that would be an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. With the Plants Committee's indulgence, I will now try to chair. I'm also getting a message. My internet connection is unstable. Perhaps this whole discussion is cursed. However, I will do my best. Tom, I would ask the Secretariat to please clarify what the chair was suggesting before she was disconnected, because I think there was some problem with the interpretation. What we heard was that she was suggesting the Secretariat be invited to draft a resolution under option 1 and then decisions under option 2. I've looked at my colleagues in the room with me. We're all very unclear. So could we please have a better understanding of what we've concluded now? Thank you.
I will try to paraphrase what the chair.
Me to refresh my page.
What the chair has said. And the PC chairs propose that the committee recommends to the Secretariat to submit option 1. Which includes a resolution, a draft resolution, but without the draft decisions that are in Annex 1. And then that it also submits option 2, and taking into consideration
the North American interventions as alternate.
Taking into consideration
Mexico.
We can hear you, Russ.
Sorry.
Don't worry. And also to submit option 2 to the Standing Committee with the amendments that were made by China and Mexico, and also this time including the draft decisions in Annex 2. And these 2 options, so to speak, would then go forward for the Standing Committee for their consideration. That is what she summarized in the end. I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Tom. So I'll look to see. My screen's been refreshed, so I guess I have to now look to see if there's anyone wishing to speak to this, or is everyone clear on the way forward? Okay, I have requesting to speak the representative from Central and South America, Pablo. I hope this is updated, and then also Malaysia. So I'll call on the PC representative for Central and South America.
Sí, muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Solamente que
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to say that we agree with this proposal, which was made by Flo. Can you hear me? I think you can't hear me.
I refreshed, I didn't have it on with the translation. So could I ask you, sorry, apologies.
Yes, of course. It was just to say that we agree with the proposal that was put forward, and to say that for our region, we see benefits to having this resolution, and we think it is correct that the Secretariat could set this up in a more detailed manner so that we can see it reviewed and revised again at and discussed at the next SC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Malaysia and then also China, at which point I think we may, in the essence of time, see if we can conclude this. So Malaysia.
Possible to paste the entire proposed text by Madam Chair into the chat box. There was quite a bit of noise during the Secretariat's explanation, so we would like to see it up front. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask the Secretariat if they could do that? Or perhaps, Tom, could you repeat very slowly so the interpreters capture it, what is going forward from the Plants Committee? Thank you. I think this is important.
I agree with that very much, Madam Chair. But we will try to post, to have it in the chat box, but I will repeat it nevertheless. Take a look at the chat box where you can see what is being proposed. So the Plants Committee proposes that the recommends that the Secretariat puts forward option 1 to the Standing Committee SC74, but without the draft decisions as they appear in Annex 1. And that it puts forward also to SC74 option 2 with the amendments that were made by China and with the amendments made by Mexico. So that is and by the way, I forgot to say, option 2 includes draft decisions in Annex 2. They would also be put forward for the Standing Committee, so it can be considered a Standing Committee. So the idea is that option 1 and option 2 in somewhat modified versions of going forward to SC74, its consideration. And of course, the Secretariat has also taken note of the wish of at least from the North American representative, to have a better justification of the need for such a resolution. And it's an appreciated intervention. We'll take it into consideration, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I see that the language has been put in the chat for all to see, both the English and translated into Spanish or French. I think it's Spanish. Okay, I think China will be I have as the last party wishing to speak.
China would like to see that we support the conclusion just made by Chair and which had been shown in the text box. Thank you.
The buttons are the reverse on the chair from what I was doing in Kudo. Okay, with that, China, thank you. With that, I think, Tom, we can conclude this and move on to the next agenda item, which I will try to do a better job of. So the next item is PC25, COM7, Agarwood producing taxa, and I will call upon the alternate representative of Asia to introduce the COM document. Thank you. I've accepted her request, Tom, so guess it's there again. I'll accept it again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And as you may know, the Agarwood working group is small but efficient, with active discussions on many issues among the range states and importing countries, as well as relevant non-governmental organizations. I thank members and the Secretariat for their continued assistance in completing the report of the in-session working group. The working group report is published in COM document PC 25-COM7. The in-session working group had the mandate to formulate recommendations regarding potential revisions to Resolution COM 1610 on implementation of the Convention for Agarwood producing taxa, as well as the Agarwood glossary and the Agarwood NDF guidance. It addressed this mandate in a video meeting and email discussions, in which overlaps between the current Resolution 1610 and the newly adopted source code Y on assistant production were discussed. The working group recommends the committee to postpone the consideration on the potential revisions to Resolution COM 1610 on implementation of the Convention for Agarwood producing taxa, as well as potential revisions to Agarwood glossary and the Agarwood NDF guidance for the next intersessional period. To this end, the working group recommends the committee to agree to submit the draft decision 19AA contained in the paragraph 6 of document PC 25-COM7 for consideration at COP19. The working group also recommends the committee to note the information contained in paragraph 3 to 5 of document PC 25-COM7, including that, and the paragraph 3 is about the in cooperation with the CITES Secretariat, the International Tropical Timber Organization is in the process of implementing an Agarwood study that could address some of the working group's concerns regarding Agarwood producing methodologies and the use of different source codes and their different management scenarios. And that range states consider contributing to the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration 2020 to 2030 as part of global landscape restoration and species recovery of respective range states, and to note the needs for identification materials and capacity building and guidance on legal acquisition findings, including on the chain of custody with regard to the specimen of Agarwood producing taxa. And we also know that the last two elements of paragraph 5 and 4 went far beyond the mandate of the in-session working group, and maybe it's more appropriate to hear your comment, hear the comments of the committee to how to address these two paragraph 5 and 4. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, I'll now open up the floor to people requesting to speak. I guess I'll ask for PC members first, followed by parties, and then NGOs and IGOs. I see the alternate representative for North America, Mexico, wishing to speak. I call on you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. The North American region wishes to express that while the report from the in-session Agarwood producing taxa working group reflects the working group's conclusions, We are concerned that the important elements of the substance of the discussions are not captured in the report. Specifically, we are concerned that the report does not provide any indication that much of the work of the working group's time was devoted to discussing assisted production and the associated source code Y, and whether it may be accurately be applied to Agarwood producing methodologies. This issue was discussed in relation to possible revisions of Resolution Conf 16.10 on implementation of the Convention for Agarwood producing taxa, as well as the upcoming ITTO Agarwood study. Although the North American region supports adoption of this report, we would like the record of this session to note this important area of discussion. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Ezekiel. I also have now wishing to speak the PC representative of Asia. I call on you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would like to thank to my colleague Jan for chairing the working groups, and all the members and the observers of the working group for the valuable contribution during the discussion. And also thank you to Secretariat for preparing the report. I support the working group's reports as presented and prepared by Secretariat and the chair of this working group. Following the offline discussion regarding to the report of the working group, please allow me to note some point. First, regarding to the point 3 on the last sentence, which is read as the use of different source code under different management scenario has consequently covered the issue of assisted production. In this regard, this is no consensus yet of the use of assisted production in the exporting country or the range state. Therefore, I prefer current sentence. And I believe that these all current sentences have sufficiently accommodated the working group discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, alternate representative for Asia. Call on HSI, Ron Orenstein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HSI, first of all, we would like to support the statement made by the government of Mexico. We do feel that this is a area of specific concern, assisted production. In the written discussion after the working group, HSI suggested an amendment to the report because we are concerned that the issue of legal acquisition is central to the implementation of the convention, and we did discuss this, and we question whether it's beyond the remit of the Plants Committee to specifically suggest the Standing Committee should consider relevant issues on this issue. And we had suggested, therefore, that the word that at the end of paragraph 5 after "and Gurinop species," we add the words "and request the Standing Committee to consider these issues and make recommendations as appropriate." I can post that in the chat. This suggestion was endorsed by a couple of parties, but there was concern raised that the Plants Committee did not have the remit to ask the Standing Committee to look at issues of this sort. So I might ask the Secretariat, but I believe it's perfectly normal that if the Plants Committee thinks there's a relevant issue, but it's within the Standing Committee's purview rather than the Plants Committee's, that they would ask the Standing Committee to consider this. So I would like to suggest that this be considered so the legal acquisition issue is not lost here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, HSI, for that suggested amendment. I'll look forward to discussion of it. I have Indonesia requesting to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to thank Alternative Representative of Asia for chairing the working group. Indonesia support the current document as presented by Secretariat and wish the Plants Committee to adopt it without any amendment. The present document has sufficiently covered all matters discussed in working group. We had long discussion on change of source code from A to Y. With such deliberation, we prefer to maintain the current sentence of point 3 of the recommendation, which paves the way for further discussion and exchange on using different source codes. Furthermore, regarding legal acquisition finding, we believe that this matter goes beyond mandate of this working group and even beyond the Plants Committee mandate. We believe that point 5 of the recommendation has sufficiently accommodate concern raised in the working group regarding the need for capacity building and a guidance for legal acquisition finding. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. I'm not seeing anyone else requesting to speak, so I'll sort of sum what I've heard. I've heard support from the representative from Asia for adopting the report as is, as did Indonesia. The North American region also expressed its support to adopt it, but wanted noted in the lengthier summary record the discussion of assisted production. I'm not hearing any support for the amendment suggested by HSI on basically referring this matter to the Standing Committee. I'm a bit unclear what the other representative from Asia proposed as a text amendment, but I didn't hear any support for that. So I'm hearing more support for the report as is, and so my recommendation would be that we adopt the report as is, with noting in the summary record the intervention of North America. And I will look to take silence as agreement with what the chair suggests as the way forward, asking your indulgence. If I capture it correctly, I'm still getting my feet wet as chair. So if you don't agree with this approach, accepting the report as adopted with noting the intervention by North America in the summary record, please request to speak. Not seeing anyone wish to speak. I guess at this point they're giving some deference to the chair. So Tom, did I get this correct? Is there anything the Secretariat needs to correct?
Rose, you were wonderful and you did very, very well. And sorry again for having invited you on the spot to deal with actually two different and difficult issues, I must say, and not easy. In the meantime, we have, I think, the good news that Flora is back on track online and she can continue, but I thought it would be best for you to conclude this matter, and you've done so very well. Thank you very much. Now perhaps, Kudo, can you switch again? VIP between Rose and back to Flora.
Bonjour tous, me voici de retour.
Hello again, everyone. I'm back. And thank you very much, Rosemary, for having taken up the reins so rapidly. Technology is not great, and I have a message once more telling me that my internet connection is unstable. I hope that for the 5 minutes that remain, I'll be able to cover item PC 25.8, which is the inclusion of Pterocarpus erinaceus from all range states in the review of significant trade. I will give the floor to the chair of the working group, Rosemary, who is the representative of the North America region and chaired this group. Rosemary, you have the floor again. Thank you.
Let me say first that I'm very happy to see you, Flora. Okay, yes, I will introduce PC 25.8, the inclusion of Pterocarpus erinaceus from all range states in the review of SIG trade. I am pleased to introduce this document in the review of SIG trade. The working group membership consisted of 2 PC members, 11 parties, including several range states for this species, and 7 IGOs and NGOs, including UNEP WCMC. I wish to express my thanks to the working group members for their input and collaboration, to the CITES Secretariat, particularly Isabel, Sophie, and Helena for their help during the discussions, especially needed translations for the range states, as it was important to have their engagement in this working group. We carried out our work by video and email. Our mandate was to consider PC 25.15.5 and its annex report and the addendum, and decide which, if any, country combinations for this species should be included in stage 2 of the review of significant trade process. This case was referred to the Plants Committee as an exceptional case under stage 1 of RST by the COP 18. In our discussions, we were guided by Resolution Comp 12.8, Rev COP 18 on the review of significant trade. Our results are presented in PC 25.8 in the tables under little a and b. We categorized 8 countries as action needed and therefore included them in stage 2 of RST and 9 countries as least concern. In addition, we made the recommendation because of the widespread and pervasive illegal trade in Pterocarpus erinaceus to refer all range states, which at the time does not include Chad and Liberia, to the Standing Committee for further consideration. Lastly, under little d, since this matter is an exceptional case and that action needs to be expedited because of the matter's urgency, we propose that the Plants Committee proceed via an intersessional decision-making process and a timeline for doing so in the review of SIG trade. I invite the Plants Committee to adopt the recommendations contained in PC 25.8, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, Madame la Présidente du groupe de...
I thank the chair of the working group for the couple of minutes that we have left. I prefer to switch off my camera to ensure we don't have any more problems. Now I would like to open the floor to committee members, observer parties, and observers. So it is now 29 minutes past 3. Maybe we can have the indulgence of the interpreters for 5 more minutes. The interpreters say yes, but we need to keep the comments brief, says the chair. I have Belgium. You have the floor, Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In document PC 25.8, it is written 2 times that Chad is not a range state of Pterocarpus erinaceus. Belgium would like to inform the Plants Committee that some scientific evidence do instead support that Chad could be a range state of the species. The species would occur in the southern part of the country close to the boundary with Cameroon. Some scientific databases, the Flora Illustrée du Tchad, as well as a couple of scientific papers do suggest or even confirm that the species does naturally occur in Chad. In addition, UNEP WCMC Species Plus website is also referring Chad as a range state of the species. So Belgium would thus suggest to adopt a conservative approach, keeping Chad in the list of range states. Would like to have document PC25.8 modified as follows. Firstly, in the table at paragraph B, page 2, line 3, in the justification column, the working group further noted that Chad is not a range state of Pterocarpus erinaceus. Should read, the working group further noted that Chad is a range state of Pterocarpus erinaceus. Secondly, at paragraph C, page 2, first line, between brackets, which does not include Chad and Liberia, see table above, should read, not Liberia, see table. Thank you, Chair.
Merci, la Belgique.
Thank you, Belgium. We've taken note of your proposal. I wanted to add that in the past, Chad was in the category of least concern. The United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States, hello? The United States supports the outcomes of this working group, and we support the intervention made by Belgium. Given that this is an exceptional case amid the extraordinary circumstances leading to the cancellation of the first planned meeting of the Plants Committee following the 18th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, rapid action is needed. Recognizing that we must allow this process to follow the procedures outlined in Resolution Conf 12.8 on the review of significant trade, it is our view that this exceptional case merits the following timelier measures. We fully support recommending the Plants Committee consider acting on this item by postal procedure rather than waiting until the next Plants Committee according to Rule 19 of the Rules of Procedure for the Plants Committee. We request the Secretariat to notify the range states, the range countries, as quickly as possible following the conclusion of the Plants Committee. We strongly encourage those range states which may be removed from the review of SIG trade process at this stage to publish their zero quotas, harvest, or trade ban information on the CITES website, as recommended in Res Conf 12.3 Rev 18 on permits and certificates, and as recommended in Resolution Conf 14.7 Rev 15 on management of national export quotas. And further and finally, we recommend that should trade resume, any change to this quota should be communicated by the range state to the Secretariat and the Chair of the Plants Committee, along with a justification, such as the basis for their non-detriment finding, as recommended in Resolution Conf 14.7 Rev 15 on management of national export quotas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, les États-Unis.
Thank you, the United States. I think we're probably going to have to take this item up again tomorrow, as we have only 1 minute left for today's meeting. Let me turn to the Secretariat in case there are any announcements.
The one announcement I would like to make is that this Plants Committee meeting reconvenes tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Central European Time, 1400 to 1530. So we have 1 hour and a half tomorrow, a slot between 2 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. to finish our business. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci pour cette annonce.
Thank you for that announcement. We will meet again tomorrow for an hour and a half. I hope that my connectivity issues will have been sorted. I would like to thank the Secretariat and Plant Committee members, as well as observer parties and observers. So we will deal with remaining agenda items in the course of tomorrow's meeting. Good afternoon.